My father didn't call. He didn't hesitate. He just texted me. Please don't come. The family wants a drama-free wedding. 10 seconds later, my sister Madison liked it. A tiny heart icon. But it felt like the final push off a cliff I'd been hanging from for years. I stared at the screen, feeling something inside me shift quiet, sharp, irreversible. They didn't want peace. They wanted me gone. So I typed back, my hands steady in a way that scared even me. Great choice. Then you'll be free of my payments too. The family group chat exploded, laughing emojis, passive-aggressive comments, the kind of cruelty people excuse as just family humor. In that moment, I realized something I should have seen long ago. I wasn't their daughter. I wasn't a sister. I was a wallet they expected never to close. My name is Claire, and this is the day everything changed. When the notification first appeared, I thought it was a mistake. My father, Richard, wasn't the type to send long texts, but he wasn't the type to send that either. Not to me. Not after everything I'd done to keep my family afloat. I reread the message. Please don't come. The family wants a drama-free wedding. Drama-free. As if my mere presence was chaos. I sat at my kitchen table, surrounded by color-coded spreadsheets, payment confirmations, and vendor contracts, every one of them signed by me. For months, I had managed Madison's wedding the same way I'd managed every family crisis. Quietly, efficiently, invisibly. I paid deposits. I negotiated dates. I solved problems no one even thanked me for solving. And yet, I was the disruption? Madison's like on Dad's message felt like a stamp of approval. She might as well have written, "Finally, we don't need her anymore." For a moment, I fought the familiar instinct to apologize, to make myself smaller, to smooth everything over like I always did. But something inside me stopped hard. I looked at all the invoices with my name on them. My money, my time, my labor, and suddenly, their rejection didn't feel like a wound. It felt like permission. Permission to stop carrying them. Permission to finally ask, if they truly didn't want me there, why was I paying for everything at all? That was the moment the balance shifted. Not in their favor, but in mine. Growing up, I was never the favorite. Not the dazzling one like Madison, not the charming one like my cousins, not the one adults bragged about at dinner parties. I was the reliable daughter, the one who remembered deadlines, made spreadsheets for vacations, organized family emergencies, and paid bills without being asked. My father used to say it like a compliment. Claire can handle it. She always does. But a compliment becomes a cage when it's the only thing people see. By the time I was 25, my role in the family had quietly solidified into 3 words. Claire will pay. I paid for Madison's textbooks because she forgot to order them. Her car repairs because she couldn't afford the tow. Her broken lease because it wasn't her fault the landlord was unfair. I even covered the engagement ring insurance fee, a detail not even her fiancé, Blake, remembered existed. And my dad? He never questioned it. He never paused and asked, "Claire, is this too much for you?" No. He treated my financial stability like a family resource, like something he was entitled to, something I owed them, but I didn't mind. Not at first. Because being needed felt like belonging. Even when it drained me. Even when I stayed up at 2 a.m. balancing accounts while Madison slept peacefully, dreaming of a wedding she had no intention of paying for. And then, the wedding planning began, a whole new level of expectation. Dad said, "Claire, you're the organized one. Take care of it." Madison added, "Just make it perfect, okay?" Every bill, every deposit, every crisis, landed on my desk. And on my shoulders. I told myself it was love. I told myself this was what family did. I told myself that one day they would appreciate me. But when Dad texted me not to come, and Madison liked it, I realized something devastating. They didn't value my help. They valued my silence. They valued my obedience. They valued my money. Not me. And once that truth settled into my chest, something old and exhausted inside me finally sat down and refused to rise again. The day after Dad told me not to come, I drove to see the only person in my family who had ever looked at me without expectation. Grandma Helen. Her house sat quietly at the end of a tree-lined street, the same place where I'd spent countless childhood afternoons watching her trim roses while telling me stories about strength I never believed I had. She opened the door before I could knock. Her eyes, soft but knowing, scanned my face. What did they do this time, sweetheart? I hadn't cried when I got the text. I hadn't cried when Madison liked it. But hearing her voice almost broke me. We sat at her kitchen table, the one covered in floral vinyl she refused to replace. I told her everything, the text, the laughter in the family group chat, the years of financial favors I'd convinced myself were normal. When I finished, she reached into a drawer and pulled out a small, faded notebook, the one she used for her emergency savings. She placed it between us. Claire, I heard Richard and Madison talking last week. My stomach tightened. Talking about what? Her lips pressed into a thin, worried line. They want a wedding week. Multiple events, bigger venue, more guests. She hesitated. And they said, if you don't help, they'll use my savings. I felt heat rush up my neck. They said that about your money? She nodded slowly. They think I won't notice. They think I won't understand. But I do, Claire. I understand far more than they believe. My breath came out sharp. All those years of giving and still it wasn't enough. Not for Dad. Not for Madison. Not even after I paid for everything that mattered to them. Grandma reached across the table and held my hand. Her grip was warm but firm, the kind of strength born from decades of surviving her own disappointments. Sweetheart, she said softly. You cannot keep carrying people who refuse to walk on their own. I stared at her, stunned. She had never spoken about Dad or Madison with anything but gentleness. But today, her voice carried truth, not softness. She continued. You've been giving them your time, your money, your energy. And all they give back is a quiet expectation that you'll keep doing it. That isn't love. That's entitlement. Her words hit with quiet precision. For the first time, I let myself imagine a version of my life where I didn't fix everything, where I didn't pay every bill, where I wasn't the family's safety net, just a woman with her own boundaries, her own needs, her own worth. Grandma squeezed my hand. I will stand with you, Claire, whatever comes next. And in that moment, I felt something shift, something small but powerful. A seed of resolve, planted by someone who saw me clearly. I didn't know it yet, but Grandma's warning would become the spark that ignited everything that followed. Driving home from Grandma's house, her words kept circling in my mind like a storm I couldn't outrun. You cannot keep carrying people who refuse to walk on their own. For years, I thought endurance was love. I thought providing meant I belonged. I thought sacrifice would eventually be appreciated. But now, all I saw was a pattern, and I was the only one paying for it. When I stepped into my apartment, the evening sun hit the scattered wedding documents on my table. Contracts, invoices, email threads, all bearing my name, my money, my signature, my liability. And suddenly, the fear I'd always felt when imagining displeasing my family dissolved. In its place was something sharper, clearer. Resolve. I sat down, opened my laptop, and started reviewing every contract Madison's wedding depended on. Catering, venue, lighting, rentals, coordination services, all authorized under me, not my father, not Madison. For once, the weight they put on my shoulders became leverage I could finally use. My hands didn't shake as I typed the first email. We will not be moving forward. Please cancel the upcoming invoice. Then another. Terminate the agreement effective immediately. Then another. It felt strange. Not vengeful. Not spiteful. Just right. With every cancellation, I felt a thread snapping, the thread that had tied me to the belief that I was responsible for holding my family together. I wasn't. Not anymore. When I finished, I opened a private message to my father. My fingers hovered for a moment, long enough for the old Claire to whisper, "Don't upset him. Keep the peace. Stay small." But that Claire had been dismissed the moment he told me not to come, so I typed, "All payments have been cancelled. Vendors notified. If the family wants a drama-free wedding, you'll need a drama-free budget, one you pay for yourselves." His reply came 10 minutes later. "Claire, this is unnecessary. Don't be petty." I exhaled slowly, feeling something uncoil inside me. "It's not petty," I wrote. "It's overdue." I set my phone down, expecting anxiety to follow. Instead, there was calm. A deep, steady quiet I hadn't felt in years. Then another knock at my door. When I opened it, Grandma stood there, wrapped in her soft blue cardigan, determination burning in her eyes. "I thought you might need company," she said. I let her in, and as she stepped inside, she added gently, "Claire, when they come home, we'll face them together." And for the first time in my life, I believed I wouldn't be standing alone. The morning they returned, the city felt unnaturally quiet, like it, too, sensed the shift coming. Grandma and I arrived at the airport early, her small hand looped through my arm, steady and warm. She wasn't fragile the way people assumed. She was steel, wrapped in softness. And today, she was unshakable. We met Mason, the attorney I had hired the night before. He was calm, collected, carrying a folder so thick it looked like a weapon made of paper. "Everything is documented," he said. "They won't be able to dismiss this as misunderstanding." I nodded, but my heart pounded hard enough to echo in my ears. Not from fear, from decades of silence finally cracking open. Then the sliding doors parted. They emerged one by one, as if walking straight out of the version of my life I no longer belonged to. Madison appeared first, hair perfect, suitcase oversized, laughing at something her fiancé, Blake, whispered. She looked annoyingly radiant, like the universe didn't dare dim a spotlight for her. Then came Dad. Richard scanned the crowd, oblivious to the storm waiting for him. He adjusted his jacket like a man preparing to receive praise, not consequences. When he spotted us, confusion crossed his face quickly, replaced by irritation. "Claire?" he snapped as they approached. "You didn't need to pick us up. We already arranged a ride." "We're not here to pick you up," I said. Madison rolled her eyes dramatically. "Oh God. Are you seriously still mad about the text? Claire, don't make this a thing." Before I could respond, Mason stepped forward, voice firm but polite. "Good morning. My name is Mason Hill, legal representative for Claire and Mrs. Helen. There are matters requiring your immediate attention." Dad stiffened. "A lawyer? For what?" Mason handed him an envelope. "For the financial misuse of Claire's funds," he said evenly, "and the attempted exploitation of Mrs. Helen's emergency savings." Madison scoffed. "This is insane. Claire, tell him to stop." I met her glare with a calm I didn't know I was capable of. "No, I won't." Dad flipped through the papers quickly, screenshots, payment summaries, contracts with my signature and my bank statements. The truth laid bare in black and white. "This could have been handled privately," he muttered, jaw tightening. I lifted my chin. "You made it private when you told me not to come. You made it legal when you tried to take Grandma's money." Blake took a step away from Madison, as if he'd just realized he was on the wrong side of history. A small crowd began forming behind us, travelers slowing their pace, sensing the tension. Dad noticed them, and his face reddened. He hated public scenes. "Let's not do this here," he hissed. Grandma stepped forward, voice trembling with strength. "No, Richard, we will do this here. They need to hear what you've done to Claire and what you tried to do to me." Madison's expression faltered. She wasn't used to Grandma choosing me, and for the first time in my life I saw something flicker in her eyes. Not guilt, not remorse, fear. The kind that comes when entitlement finally meets consequences. This confrontation was only just beginning. And none of them were ready for what came next. Dad's fingers tightened around the documents, his eyes scanning line after line as the color drained from his face. For years he'd dismissed my concerns, minimized my exhaustion, waved away my boundaries. But he couldn't wave this away. Not when the proof was literally shaking in his hands. Madison snatched her own envelope from Mason and tore it open. "What is this supposed to be?" she demanded, her voice too loud, already cracking. Mason answered calmly. "Documentation of your attempts to access Mrs. Helen's emergency fund, along with the financial reliance you placed on Claire without consent or compensation." Madison blinked at him, stunned. Then she turned to me, anger rising like a shield. "You're really doing this? You're seriously punishing us because you didn't get invited to one event?" I laughed quiet, humorless. "One event? Your entire wedding has been sitting on my credit card for months." Dad stepped forward, his authority slipping. "Claire, you always helped. You never complained before." "That's because you never gave me space to complain," I said. "Every time I hesitated, you called me dramatic. Every time I struggled, you said I was overreacting. And when I finally drew a boundary, you laughed." Grandma placed a gentle hand on my back, steadying me. Her presence felt like armor. Madison tried again, voice rising, desperation bleeding through her harshness. "You're ruining everything. You could have just talked to us." I stared at her, stunned by the audacity. Talk to you? You literally liked the message telling me not to come. You thought excluding me was funny. 8. Comes of Easter inces. 8. Blake shifted nervously, inching further away from her. And, I continued, you expected me to keep paying for the wedding while staying home so I wouldn't cause drama. Madison's mouth opened, then closed. For once, she had no rehearsed excuse. Mason stepped in, tone crisp. You must respond to these legal notices within the required time frame. Until then, you are prohibited from accessing Mrs. Helen's accounts or relying on Claire's funds. Dad snapped the folder shut. This is too much. You're blowing things out of proportion. Grandma's chin lifted, steel flashing in her eyes. No, Richard. You minimized everything for years. You dismissed Claire's worth to make room for Madison's wants. But this, she pointed at the documents, this is the truth you refused to see. Dad swallowed hard. For the first time, I saw uncertainty and shame. Madison looked between us, me, Grandma, everyone watching. Her shoulders sagged. The arrogance she wore like perfume evaporated. So what now? She whispered. Her voice was small, afraid, real. I met her gaze, steady and unapologetic. Now, I said, you learned to stand without me, the same way I had to learn to stand without you. Silence stretched between us, heavy, electric, echoing years of buried resentment finally dragging itself to the surface. Dad exhaled shakily. Claire, we just wanted the wedding to be perfect. We didn't mean— Stop, I said softly. Stop pretending your intentions, erase your actions. You wanted perfection, and you were willing to sacrifice me to get it. He had no response. Mason closed the folder. We're done here. Grandma looped her arm through mine, her touch solid. Her warmth anchored me as the final break clicked into place. Clean, undeniable, irreversible. As we turned to leave, Madison called after me. Claire, please, what are we supposed to do now? I didn't turn around. Figure it out, I said. The same way you expected me to. And with that, I walked away. Not in anger, but in freedom. In the days that followed the airport confrontation, the silence from my family was louder than any argument we had ever had. No angry calls from Dad. No passive-aggressive texts from Madison. Not even the usual late-night, "Can you help with this?" messages. Nothing. It was the first time in my adult life they didn't reach for me, and the first time I realized how much of my identity I had built around being reachable. But the world didn't fall apart without them. Actually, it steadied. Emails from vendors trickled in one by one. Cancellations confirmed. Invoices terminated. No further charges. With each notification, another weight slid off my shoulders. Meanwhile, the wedding shrank from a spectacle to something far more realistic. Madison complained online about fake people sabotaging her special day. But the truth was simple. Without my money, the fantasy version of her wedding couldn't exist. Dad sent 3 short texts over the week. We need to talk. This is getting blown out of proportion. And finally, I don't know how to fix this. I didn't respond to any of them. Because for the first time, fixing things wasn't my job. Grandma and I spent more time together. We reorganized her finances, added legal protections, set up alerts, and consulted with Mason about formal safeguards. As we worked, she looked at me with a softness that reached places in me I'd forgotten existed. Claire, you're not cold for stepping back, she said one afternoon. You're finally caring for yourself. Her words settled over me like a warm blanket. I had spent years believing my value came from how much I gave. Money, time, emotional labor, stability. Without giving, who was I? Slowly, painfully, beautifully. I was learning the answer. I wasn't a provider. I wasn't a crisis manager. I wasn't a walking wallet or an emotional sponge. I was a woman reclaiming the pieces of herself she'd abandoned to keep everyone else comfortable. Madison tried once more, sending a clipped, frustrated text. So you're just done after everything? I typed slowly, deliberately. I'm not done. I'm finally starting. I didn't hear from her again. In the quiet that followed, something unexpected bloomed inside me. Not guilt. Not fear. Peace. They could figure out their own emergencies now. They could pay their own bills. They could navigate the consequences of their choices. The same consequences I had been shielding them from for years. And me? For the first time in my life, I felt the ground beneath my feet belonged to me. The aftermath wasn't chaos. It was clarity. Several weeks passed before the dust fully settled. But when it did, life felt strangely open, quiet in a way that wasn't lonely, steady in a way that wasn't forced. I no longer woke to frantic messages from my dad. I no longer skimmed my bank account, bracing for another unexpected family emergency. I no longer waited for appreciation that was never coming. Instead, I woke to something unfamiliar yet comforting: my own choices, my own time, my own peace. With Grandma fully protected under the new legal and financial safeguards, we gradually shifted from crisis mode to simply enjoying each other's company. We cooked dinner together. We tended her rose bushes. We laughed, really laughed for the first time in months. One afternoon, while we sipped tea in her backyard, she placed her hand over mine. "You saved both of us, Claire," she said softly. I shook my head. "I didn't save us, Grandma. I just stopped letting them drain us." That truth settled between us like sunlight, warm, gentle, undeniable. Inspired by everything we went through, I applied for a volunteer position at a local advocacy center, supporting older adults who faced financial exploitation. People like Grandma. People who needed someone to stand beside them the way she stood beside me. Helping them didn't feel heavy the way helping my family once did. It felt purposeful, healing, like giving back without losing pieces of myself. For the first time in my life, I wasn't fixing chaos built by others. I wasn't cushioning the consequences of someone else's selfishness. I wasn't disappearing to make room for someone else's comfort. I was building something honest. A life shaped by boundaries, not burdens. Looking back now, it's almost poetic. The moment my father texted, "Please don't come," I thought he was cutting me out. But really, he was setting me free. Free to see the truth. Free to reclaim my worth. Free to grow into someone I could finally recognize. My name is Claire, and walking away wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of the first chapter I ever wrote for myself.